No television preacher has ever read the Bible. Neither has any evangelical politician. Neither has the Pope. Neither have I. And neither have you. At best, we've all read a bad translation. A translation of translations of translations of hand-copied copies of copies of copies of copies, and on, hundreds of times. About 400 years passed between the writing of the first Christian manuscripts and their compilation into the New Testament. The first books of the Old Testament were written 1,000 years before that. In other words, some 1,500 years passed between the day the first biblical author put stick to clay and when the books that would become the New Testament were chosen. There were no printing presses beforehand, or until 1,000 years later. There were no vacuum-sealed technologies to preserve paper for centuries. Dried clay broke, papyrus and parchment crumbled away, primitive inks faded. Back then, writings from one era could be passed to the next, only by copying them by hand. While there were professional scribes whose lives were dedicated to this grueling work, they did not start copying the letters and testaments about Jesus' time until centuries after they were written. Prior to that, amateurs handled the job. Scribes added whole sections of the New Testament and removed words and sentences that contradicted emerging Orthodox beliefs. Take one of the most famous tales from the New Testament, which starts in John 7:53. The Pharisees ask Jesus whether the woman should be released or killed, hoping to force him to choose between honoring Mosaic law and his teachings of forgiveness. Jesus replies, "He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone." The group leaves, and Jesus tells the woman to sin no more. It's a powerful story, known even by those with just a passing knowledge of the Bible. It was depicted in Mel Gibson's movie, The Passion of the Christ, and is often used to point out the hypocrisy of Christians who denounce what they perceive to be the sins of others. Unfortunately, John didn't write it. Scribes made it up sometime in the Middle Ages. It does not appear in any of the 3 other Gospels or in any of the early Greek versions of John. Even if the Gospel of John is an infallible telling of the history of Jesus' ministry, the event simply never happened. Moreover, according to Ehrman, the writing style for that story is different from the rest of John, and the section includes phrases that do not appear anywhere else in the Bible. Scholars say they are words more commonly used long after that Gospel was written.